1. Alright. This happened about 4 years ago when I was 15. I was travelling to see my grandma from the north of England going to the West Country. I was travelling on my own because most of my family weren't talking to my grandma at the time. But I still was. My grandma lives in the middle of nowhere, whereas I live in a big city. This was the first time I was travelling alone, and it was a long journey that took a total of about 9 hours. Because it was a long journey and I had school, I decided to go on Friday after school, and return on Sunday to maximize my time with my grandma. This meant getting on the train at 5 p.m. and arriving at around 2 a.m. at my grandma's nearest station. So, since it was summer, the first bit of the journey was fine, and it settles my nerves because it was light, and it was also going through big areas with lots of other passengers. However, as my journey continued and it got later into the night, there were less and less people, and I was going through smaller and smaller villages. In my journey, I had to get 3 different trains, and my story begins when waiting for my 3rd train. I am a nervous traveler, or at least I was when I was 15, and I had stupidly decided to have a joint waiting for my last train as I had a 45-minute wait. The train station was tiny, and quite dimly lit. It only had 2 platforms, and it didn't have a gate that required a ticket to get through, so anyone could walk in and sit and wait for a train. There was no one else at the station, as it was around 1 a.m., and so I was just casually smoking when a man arrived. I quickly put it out and worried that I would get in trouble, and the man sat directly opposite me. He was bald and had a somewhat wrinkly face, but was dressed very young like a teenager and was very skinny. I could feel him staring at me, and when I looked up, I saw he had the darkest eyes I've ever seen. I was really freaked out by him, but I thought I might be overreacting. A moment passed and 2 other men walked in, and one after another sat down on either side of me, despite there being plenty of free chairs. For some reason I could just tell that all these men knew each other. The other 2 men were taller and wider than the other men, and looked older too. At this point I was terrified because they had effectively surrounded me. If I stood up, they could grab me and I wouldn't be able to move. I saw the guy opposite's lips move, and I knew he was talking to me, so I took out one of my headphones. "Pardon?" I asked. "You're not from round here, are you?" He said, and he had a very thick West Country accent. "Yes, I am," I lied, because I thought that would make me a less likely target, as it would mean I have family close by. "Oh? What school do you go to?" "Oh, fuck," I think. "The Catholic high school." Purely guessing that they have one. "Oh, my niece goes there. She's called Sally. Do you know her?" I asked how old she was because I could guess at what year she's in to see if it's likely that I knew her. The man said she was 16, so I told him, yeah, I think she's in the year above me. The man then said, "You're a little young to be travelling by yourself." "But my dad is checking in on me and calling me every half hour." This is a complete lie, but probably the smartest thing I'd done in my 15 years.
"Oh, is he? That good?"
"Yeah, he's a cop, so really overprotective and worries a lot." Also a complete lie, my dad is an IT manager. At this point, the man starts to look a bit worried. I'm actually going to call him now to tell him I'm about to get on the train. When I said this, I felt like I was threatening him, like daring him to try and stop me getting on that train. I go on my phone and call my mum, not my dad, because I don't speak to my dad. And I had headphones on, so they wouldn't be able to hear a woman's voice. "Hey, Dad, I'm about to get on the train in about 10 minutes. I should be at Grandma's in less than an hour. Can you tell her to put the oven on, because I'm really hungry and want to eat when I get there?" My phone conversation doesn't really make sense because why is my dad with my grandma if I'm going to see her? But it doesn't really matter to the guy sitting next to me because as soon as I started talking on the phone, they got up and left. I made eye contact with the man sitting opposite, and I'll never forget the anger in his face as I was making that call. However, he didn't get up and follow the 2 men. I was still bricking it, and then I heard the best sound in the world, a baby crying. I turned around and saw a couple with a baby walking into the train station. I have never been more pleased to hear a baby crying in a train station before. The man then got up and left, and the couple sat down. A train then arrived, and I sat so I could see the couple and they could see me. and then called my mum and explained the weird-ass phone call I had made. I then called my grandma and asked for a lift from the station because the last thing I wanted to do was walk down a dark country road. When I later told my grandma about it, she said I should talk to the police because apparently people do target strangers passing through the small villages in her area. I'm just glad I was able to bullshit my way through that weird conversation whilst being stoned. Anyway, fucking creepy guy at the train station, let's not meet. 2. So this happened over the span of around a year when I was 15 to 16. I am 20 now, and it only recently had been revealed to me how fucked up this situation really was. I was, obviously, still living at home at the time, but my sister, who is 7 years older than me, had moved out and was living with her now husband, their high school best friend, and some other dude they met via one of those find-a-roommate sites. He was kinda the reclusive nerdy type, much preferring to hide in his room watching Star Trek and playing computer games than to actually hang out with the roommates. And the only person he ever really seemed to want to be around was his similarly shy and nerdy girlfriend. For a little context to the story, at the time this happened he was 28 and she was 24. They were both a little weird, but initially seemed entirely harmless. For ease of telling the story and for saving on characters, their friendly roommate will be FR. Weird roommate will be WR, and his girlfriend will be WGF. Now, my sister and I have never really had the best relationship with our parents, and at this point things were especially rocky. Our mother was dating a guy who was, to put it kindly, an abusive sack of shit who seemingly loathed me and would find any excuse to go off at me. As a result, I spent a lot of time staying over at my sister's place. It was around the time I'd spent a lot of time there that WR and WGF really started to get strange. As I said earlier, the pair of them were always kinda odd. They only ever seemed to want to speak to each other, and would even go so far as to ignore anyone else who spoke to them. WGF was worse than WR for this by a mile. He would at least give you monosyllabic responses most of the time. She had a kind of creepy habit of just blankly staring at you for a couple seconds, and then walking away if you asked her a question, or tried to engage her in conversation at all. That isn't the really weird behavior, though. When I would stay over, I'd sleep on a futon in FR's office space, which was on the ground floor. It happened to be next to the downstairs bathroom, which for some reason WGF vastly preferred to the upstairs one. She would take long showers in the middle of the night, which is whatever. I'm a pretty heavy sleeper and she wasn't a shower singer or anything like that, so I generally slept right through them. One night, however, I stayed up mega late doing revision and homework, and happened to be awake after she finished her shower. I was too absorbed in my task to really pay attention to anything else. But I definitely noted hearing the shower shut off because that was my indicator to how goddamn late it really was. Approximately 10 minutes later I look up from my laptop and there she is. I always kept the door open just a crack because that room tended to get unbearably hot if I didn't. And she was standing there, outside the room, butt-ass naked, watching me through the open crack in the door. I said her name and asked if she was okay, which seemingly startled her because she walked away pretty sharpish. I convinced myself that in my over-caffeinated, sleep-deprived state, I'd imagined the whole thing and didn't mention it to anyone. Fast forward about a month, and I head over to my sister's one night to find FR kind of agitated about what he perceives to be a peeping Tom problem. He found fingerprints on the outside of his office window in such a way that would imply someone had been pressing up against the glass and looking in. The blind in his room was slightly too small for the window, so you could see in from the outside if you looked through at the sides, and the room was on the front of the house, and the window was easily accessible from the street. He'd become concerned that some random passing pervert had been spying on him while he was having a private moment, so to speak, in his office. Or else some potential burglar had been sizing up the joint. The police were called, but as they didn't have any external CCTV at this point, no evidence could be provided and ultimately not a lot could be done. To combat this escalating further, FR installed both internal and external CCTV on the house. This was installed whilst WR and WGF were away on a holiday, and I guess everyone just forgot to tell them about it. Another couple months later, and I go to my sister's to find WR's room empty, and informed that he was moving out. Of course, I asked why, and I was informed simply that he and WGF were a pair of fucking creeps, and the others had collectively decided to kick them out. Apparently, her watching me through the office door was not a one-time incident. The CCTV footage showed that she regularly made a habit of standing and watching me through the cracked door, sometimes for as long as 20 to 30 minutes. I was just usually asleep when she did it. Not only that, but the fingerprints on the window had quite apparently been from WR standing outside and watching me after I'd showered, and was hanging out in just a towel, which was a less regular occurrence, but apparently was caught on camera enough times for it to be concerning. As if that wasn't weird enough in and of itself. I was recently hanging out with my sister and her husband, and he passed comment about how he wishes they'd told me the full story at the time, so I could have chosen to press charges. I asked what he meant by that, and he revealed that not only had they both been secretly watching me, the CCTV also showed that they'd mess with food and stuff that I bought, including clips of them licking all of my apples, her spitting in my orange juice, and even dumping regular cow's milk into my lactose-free stuff, which explained why I had a period of feeling really sick from nowhere. To top it all off, apparently when FR barged into their room to confront them about it, he not only found out that several shirts I thought I'd misplaced elsewhere had been stolen by the two of them, and literally hung up on their wall. She had done several drawings of me sleeping and written a poem called Ode to My Name, whose contents I don't know and don't really want to know. Apparently FR gave them an ultimatum of, "You have 2 hours to get the fuck out of this house and never contact Gingerbread Bloke or any of us again, or I'm calling the police." And they took the former option. They've never tried to contact me subsequent to this, but I feel sick thinking of what they were potentially planning. My sister's 20-something roommates who watched my teenage self sleep. Let's not meet again. 3. At the time of this, I was 16 and very baby-faced. I never had a retail job before and was pretty desperate. But as fate would have it, I was to remain jobless no more, as my mum had found me one. She told me that as she was walking home, a 40-year-old balding man who was stood in the doorway of a hotel stopped her and asked her if she had a daughter. Now, see, the town we live in is extremely small, but it gets a lot of tourists. Basically all the locals knew each other. So this didn't seem strange to my mum. He had probably seen us walking past together, as the hotel is on a main street that you have to pass every time if you want to leave the town. So of course she answered yes, and he asked her if I was unemployed. Once again she answered yes. He then offered my mum a job for me and asked if I could come do an interview. My mum was very pleased. She had been nagging me all summer to get a job, and this was the perfect opportunity. That same night, I believe it was around 9 p.m., she dragged me to the hotel and sat me in front of this man. He asked me a bunch of questions, like if I had any experience working and stuff like that. Normal job interview questions. He told me what I would most likely be doing and what I should dress in. One thing kept bugging me though. We were the only ones there, and this place was open, but it was just us. We were sat in the main bar and there wasn't a customer in sight. After some more talking and figuring things out, it was settled. I was to come in the next morning for a trial day, and if the guy liked me, then I was going to stay and work there. So the next day arrives and I wake up early and try my best to look smart. I remember being extremely nervous and not knowing what to expect. The hotel was only a 5-minute walk from my house, so it was easy enough to get there. When I got there, the hotel doors were locked and there was no one around in sight. At first I thought I'd got the times wrong, but I checked and I hadn't. Eventually a very tall and skinny guy pulls up in a car and walks towards me. He introduces himself as the manager of the hotel. The guy punches a code into the lock on the door and tries to open it. It doesn't work. So his next approach is to aggressively bang on the door until the small bald man comes running and unlocks it. From now on, I'll refer to the small bald man as BM, as he plays a very big role in this story. So as I enter the hotel, BM greets me and asks me how I'm feeling. He also tells me I look far too smart to be working there. Another red flag. I tell him I'm excited but nervous and try to ignore the weird comment. Side note, by no means is this hotel new, it is very old. It is supposedly the most haunted hotel in Britain. But if you ask me, that's a bunch of bullshit. A lot of the hotel was falling apart and in disrepair, except for the outside decking, which they had just got refurbished. BM told me that I would basically be waitressing most of that day. I was fine with waitressing. If anything, I was quite happy about it. That day it was really sunny, and I didn't want to be stuck changing sheets all day anyway. BM had told me to sweep the deck area. As I was sweeping, I noticed I was the only person there, like, the only worker. I ignored it and just got on with what I was doing and assumed more people would show up. They did not. The rest of the day was very busy, as the sun is quite rare in Britain, so the place was packed. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail, as this has gone on for quite a while. It's not even the main part of the story yet, but basically I was overwhelmed. I hadn't had any training whatsoever, and of course all the customers came running to me with their orders, and I had no idea how to take them. BM was supposed to be teaching me how to take orders and how to work the register. He did not and left me for dead. At the end of the day I was exhausted but very happy. I had been having fun, all things considered. I planned to figure things out without the help of BM, so I was quite optimistic about everything. BM said I did a great job and asked me to come back the next day, so I was over the moon. I finally got a job. The happiness would not last, though. The next day was awful. It was non-stop rain. I arrived at the hotel and BM was there to greet me. BM lived in the hotel. This becomes important later on. He had his own room where he slept. He told me it would be just us today, as the manager had a family affair to take care of. I didn't think much of it. I barely saw the manager on the first day anyway, so what difference would it make to me? He told me to hover around whilst he took a shower. Once again, it was just me and him. There was no other workers here. I was pretty much the only person hired, apart from a few cleaners who cleaned the rooms. I finished hoovering and BM came back. He seemed in pain. Apparently he had hurt his neck in the shower somehow. According to him, he had multiple back problems. He was in a bit of distress and kept emphasizing how much he hurt. I didn't know what to do and just kinda stood there like an idiot looking lost. He asked me to call a few physicians. I was dumbfounded. Why did he want me to call them? Wouldn't he want to explain what had happened himself? But alas, me being the obedient little shit that I am, I looked up as many physicians as I could and called them. Of course, all of them were booked up. I couldn't get an appointment for him. He seemed pretty pissed off about it, but then asked me to follow him. He took me to his room, which was basically just a TV, a set of drawers, and a bed in a room by the reception. At this point I was getting sketched out and felt incredibly uncomfortable. Mind you, I was a complete pushover, so I was starting to get worried about what was going to happen here. He picked up a bottle of something that was on a set of drawers. He handed it to me. It was a bottle of massage oils. My stomach dropped. This 40-something-year-old man wanted a 16-year-old to massage his neck and back. Nope. I gave him this what the fuck look. He just stared at me and said, "I can't run the hotel with a hurt neck." I really hate saying no, especially to adults. I have this underlying urge to please people, but this was way too far. Way too far. I looked him dead in the eyes and for the first time in my life said, "No, I'm not comfortable." He seemed a bit shocked. I had put on a very stern voice. But he said he understood and grabbed the oils off of me. I breathed a sigh of relief, but was extremely anxious and wanted to leave that second. I have no idea why I didn't. BM then took me into the main sitting area of the pub and grabbed a hammer. Once again, I was extremely confused. Why on earth did he have a hammer? This man turned to me, handed the hammer to me, and asked me to hit him with it. I thought he'd lost his damn mind. He told me that's what his doctor does whenever his neck spasms out. I felt pressured and just wanted him to leave me alone, so I grabbed the hammer and did what he asked. This was the most uncomfortable 10 minutes of my entire existence. He kept making these really weird grunting and moaning noises, saying, "Yes, that's it," and "I feel better already." Eventually he told me to stop and that his neck felt better. But he didn't feel up to running the hotel, so that was my job. He had 3 guests coming into rooms that day, so I had to wait until they came and give them the key to the room they would be staying in. He actually explained what I had to do this time, so I was prepared. He said he was going for a nap because he didn't feel good. I was relieved and just wanted him to leave me alone, even if it meant I had to run the whole place by myself. As soon as he left, the first thing I did was call my mum. I was extremely scared he was going to come back and was on the verge of tears. I don't feel safe or comfortable. I just wanted to leave but felt that I couldn't. My mum came straight to the hotel, and that's when I realized the front door was locked. This guy had locked me in a hotel and tried to get me to massage him. I felt sick. My mum was furious. She didn't want me to stay, but I couldn't just leave everything unlocked. She forced my younger brother to come and hang out with me and make sure everything was okay until my shift ended. My younger brother is much bigger than me and does a lot of working out, so he's a well-built guy. I felt safe having him there. Since it was raining, no one came in the whole day, so me and my brother just played pool and chilled. I made sure to give him as many drinks as he wanted, non-alcoholic of course, for free. It was around 2:30 p.m. when a couple showed up for the key to the room. I gave them the key and showed them to the room. After that, my shift was over. However, I didn't want to leave the place completely unlocked and open to the public. I wasn't that much of an asshole. I tried calling BM's phone, but he didn't answer, so I tried texting him, still no answer. I tried knocking on his door, but he would not wake up. At this point, I was pissed off. This man had made me feel uncomfortable beyond compare, and then dumped his whole business on me. No, I was not having it. I didn't care how much trouble I could have gotten in. I just left the place completely unlocked. Needless to say, I didn't go back. I asked my mum if she could go pick up my wages and tell them I wasn't coming back, which she did. She also had some choice words to say to them as well. I found out after the fact this isn't the first time something like this has happened. Apparently a few girls my age have had similar encounters with BM. That's probably why I was the only person working there. Anytime a tourist now stops me and asks me if there are any good places to go for food, I tell them anywhere but the hotel I worked in. Just my little way of saying fuck you to BM and his business. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 385. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, I'd better wrap these up soon. It's currently, well, technically it's 8:02, but the clocks went forward at the weekend, so I don't know if the birds realise that, but they'll be starting to tweet soon. And I want to get this recording done, so I just have to make the videos later. Planning on having another week like I have the last couple, although I'll be a bit smarter about managing my time, because I got done and had the Friday to myself. Oh good, I've got an extra day to do nothing. But I was so tired on the Friday, I sat on the sofa, just falling asleep, just dozing periodically all day is what I did. And I was absolutely fine on Saturday, because I went to bed early and I got a good thorough sleep, and I was fine. And the following day and the Saturday, I enjoyed the rest of my weekend. Well, I'll get it worked out. Yeah, I'll get this new method worked out, because time-wise, it's working out better for me. I just need to do things earlier, and I'll get it sorted. It also means I can clear out time, because I want to start getting episodes of the Jack and Andy stories out a bit more regularly. So if I get most of it done earlier in the week, I can then get free time on the Friday to record for those. and we'll get that. Well, I don't say we'll get that wrapped up because it's an ongoing story. It doesn't really. It ends where Scott decides it ends. But I'm hoping to. I was going to record it on Sunday there. I didn't quite have time, so I'll get it recorded through the week, and I'll try and get the part up by Sunday. But hopefully I can get into the habit of getting them out on the regular. We'll see how it goes. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.